Welcome back. So we'll go back straight to where Dr. Fabi was making a point, a crucial point. So let's have that.
Yeah, so our point is simple, that 20 million cows cannot be walking around a nation where yields are down 10 to 20%, where the entire northeastern part of the country is out of bounds because of Boko Haram. Any cattle rearer that takes animals into that area is basically donating them to Boko Haram. We see opportunity in that crisis, and this is what we do. In any society with those many livestock, commercial ranching has to be the solution. So what we propose on Mr. Sowore's platform and in the party itself is that we would introduce commercial ranching into the country. We shouldn't have 20 million cows in the country and still be importing milk. We should have dairy industries. We should have rendering industries. We should have a thriving leather industry. Those are the types of opportunities that come from that. In fact, our estimations are that you should be making no less than about $50 to $100 billion from having a functional dairy industry, functional leather industry. In fact, we'll take it one step further. If you have 20 million animals that are in contained spaces in commercial ranches, the drop-ins alone, the feces from those 20 million animals is sufficient to give you almost 1,000 megawatts of power. Yeah. These are simple, straightforward things. So there is opportunity in crisis.
Okay, cool. We'll take a few questions from you guys watching. This is from Good Luck Ofeji. Your middle name is quite tongue twisting. I wish to know, sir, once you become the president of this country 2019, if and when he becomes president of Nigeria 2019, what are your plans for the corrupt politicians and Buhari, Boko Haram leader, who is hiding under the roof of integrity?
Now, it's very straightforward. There is no limitation started for crimes of corruption. That is, if you are corrupt and we can show that you are corrupt by way of adequate and proper investigation, you can be punished at any time. And we just need to strengthen our judicial arm strong enough, because right now the judiciary is as corrupt as the executive and the legislative arm of the country. So it's not about.
Do you have any evidence to show for this?
Oh yes, this is what I do. That's what I do. That's what I used to do before now. I have published. It's not just having it. I published a dossier of corrupt judicial officers in this country. I published a dossier of corrupt legislative officers in this country, elected, unelected, and presidents. In fact, it is widely known that so many of the allegations of corruption against the Nigerian military under Jonathan were lifted directly from Sahara reporters in some circumstances, right? The same thing has had of judges. In fact, there was a year we published corruption stories about judges. It led the government at that time, it was Yar'Adua's government, or was it Jonathan's government, to drop judges that were supposed to go to the Court of Appeal, because the evidence was so damning that they could not ignore it. Right?
So what seems to be the misfit here is not just the will to find evidence or the will to punish people, but the will to actually implement a decision,
It's all of it.
Implement the law.
It's all of it. Because, the will to find is not strong. Because if you are looking for corrupt people and you get a chance to catch some of them, and when they come over to your party, you accept them. Like there was a time the EFCC was saying that the former governor of Akwa Ibom State, Akpabio, was corrupt, Godswill Akpabio. They made it public, he stole so amount of money. And one day Akpabio finds himself in APC. Akpabio is no longer corrupt. That means you have destroyed the will to find and prosecute, right? And then the will to punish, when you go to, okay, I want to give you another instance. There are times that the government or the investigative authorities will find that someone stole 10 billion naira. They will not prosecute the person for the strongest evidence they have. They will go for an evidence that, they will go for charges that are not provable in court. And at the end of the day, these people will just walk away with with a slap on the wrist. There was a time the governor of Edo State, Lucky Igunedo, was fined 3.5 million naira after he was convicted of stealing 3.7 billion naira. He walked into the trunk of his car and brought the fine money. I said, take. Look at that kind of investment. You understand? So I'm giving you hard evidence now, and I hope you are not scared already.
No, I'm not.
Because
but I would like to take more questions. This is from Jonah. He says, the Nigerian parliament has become too powerful and expensive to maintain. How do you plan to drive down the cost of maintaining the two chambers and generally the cost of governance in the country?
Two ways. One is the one that's scary, And when I want to say this, I won't look in the side of Malcolm because he'll punch me in the face. I am of the opinion that we don't need a bicameral legislative system.
Wow.
Yes, but it cannot be done without, of course, having a constitutional review or
getting the lawmakers to exit themselves from government.
No, you may not need to do that. You can actually drive this country to a point where the people can drive for a constitutional review by electing people who can make it happen, right? We don't have to have this set of gluttonous legislators continuously coming into office. You can actually make it a condition for you to vote for somebody by saying, look, if the AAC legislative contestants or candidates will guarantee us a unicameral legislative, I will vote for them. And that will be the basis for voting people into office in that election cycle. And they'll make it happen. Otherwise, you recall them back. It's possible. But there are other ways. The second part of it is actually to implement the laws of the land. You see, according to the Revenue Mobilization and Physical Agency, the agency responsible for regulating salaries, I'm not sure that I got the name correctly, so I don't want to mislead people. They said an average legislator in Nigeria, being a senator or a House of Rep member, is only entitled to ₦1 million naira. That is 1,100,000. But these guys are walking away every month with 13.5 million naira as allowances alone. Their salary is about ₦1 million naira, and then they do oversight visits to ministries and departments and agencies of government, and they scam them. It is like an extortion racket going on. We can get rid of that because these are illegalities being perpetrated, and any serious government can put an end to that and save a lot of money. But it will be very, very tough without changing this present crop of, criminally minded legislators through an election purge. For us to get to a place where we can, continue to maintain a system that we can afford. Right now, the overhead cost of the National Assembly is about 1.3 trillion naira.
Wow.
That's the same amount of money we need to take 13 million kids out of the streets to go back to school.
Okay, let's move to the economy now because we're already there. So, and it's almost impossible to talk about it without talking about crude oil in Nigeria, because that seems to be the cash cow, give or take, or dying cash cow, whichever way you choose to put it. Now, point is, President Buhari unbundled NNPC. Atiku says he plans to sell it off. Yes. What do you plan to do?
I hate to refer to these two people, because the person who unbundled it probably didn't even understand the meaning of unbundling. You cannot unbundle an APC and then you make yourself the Minister of Petroleum Resources, and then you make the Chief of Staff a member of the board of the NNPC, right? And the man who wants to sell off the NNPC, he spent 8 years of his life as the Vice President of Nigeria selling off whatever they could sell. Where did it take us? Right. What we need to do is to understand that NNPC belongs to the Nigerian people. Run the place transparently with very competent, very honest Nigerians, and make the wealth we get from there available to the Nigerian people. One of the things I would prefer to do in the future, instead of giving oil blocks to politicians, I'll give it to universities. So that whatever profit they make, they can invest in education. They can invest it as part of the university's wealth to create opportunities for more young people to go to school. I'm just giving that as an example. It's not part of our manifesto yet. But, these are creative ways, and very progressive ways of investing in the future. And, because the NNPC that Atiku is planning to sell, is not going to give the money, he's not going to use the money from that sale on Nigerian people. In the first place, who is Atiku going to sell NNPC to? It's going to sell it to Atiku. Right? Atiku bought a bunch of companies, Atiku is one of the few Nigerians, who cannot explain how he made his wealth. And if he's already telling you that he wants to sell an NPC, you can understand in advance that Atiku is about to put Nigeria as a whole on Alibaba for sale. And that's why he's leading a charge. They are charging towards Nigeria right now. A bunch of criminally minded thieves are waiting in the wings so that as soon as Atiku wins, oh my God, they can't wait to sell whatever they can find in this country to themselves and take over the country. And all of you who are articulating will find yourself completely articulated by the time they are done with you. That is what they used to do, and that's what they will continue to do when they get to office. So again, I want to get back to it that whatever is public enterprise in this country should be kept as a public enterprise, but properly managed. We can explore very creative ways of getting the private sector involved, but the driving force must be transparency. That is, we must know how much we are making from oil sales. We must know how much we are making from gas sales. Right now, you can't tell. They just throw figures around. We don't know how much NNPC lives with Nigeria at the end of when they are done after they deduct amongst them for themselves. Don't forget, this is the same country where an NNPC GMD buried underground $9 million in Kaduna. Now there must be so much money in this cash cows that anybody can do whatever they want.
Okay, but what we do know is that between 1.8 and 1.9 million barrels are being sold daily.
Yes.
We know it goes for between $50 to $60 per barrel.
Yes.
We also know at the same time that we have turned our annual budget to over about 8 trillion naira.
Yes.
So what I want to know is, where would you get the cash from? Chinese loans, French loans, where will you get the cash from, to refloat the Nigerian economy?
Oh, you just mentioned that Nigeria's budget is 8 trillion.
Yes.
Did you not read, by the way, I'll come back to what you say you know. You don't know, it's what they told you,
No, it's what I said is what the NNPC
yes, so
published.
Yes.
That's what we that's what we read.
So, but let me let me quickly answer the question you just asked. What was it they told us last week? Now they told us that the FIRS made from taxes. FIRS, that's Federal Inland Revenue Service of Nigeria. They said they made 4 trillion naira.
Over what period?
Over 1 year. This I read last week, and they have been celebrating it. Customs said they made over 2.3 trillion naira. Over the last 1 year, they've been celebrating Ali and said, you see all of that. And JAMB even said they made 90 billion naira. Right?
Sales of forms.
Of forms. So between JAMB, Customs, FIRS, and EFCC that claim that they also recovered 540 billion naira worth of stolen monies, we have already funded our budget. That is assuming what they are saying is true. We are close to funding our budget. And now, we haven't gone to oil sales. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, do we need to borrow money from China if IFRS is doing very well? But, so that I can take you to the next level, Nigeria is collecting only 7% of taxes that are due to Nigeria. The rate of collection of taxes around here in the sub-Saharan African region is 17%, which means that we can quickly double our taxes. And so where we are collecting 4 trillion naira, we can easily make 8 trillion naira, which means that IFRS alone can pay for the budget of Nigeria if we had 8 trillion naira. These are figures that have been bandied around, and I'm just helping you to clean them up so that you can understand that we don't need to borrow, right? Even this regime of Buhari received back some of Abacha's loot. It was about $320 million. The day they got the money, They entered into the jet and went to China to borrow the same amount of money from China. Something is wrong. They are not telling you. And that's why we need to get rid of these guys. They're just practicing abracadabra. There's no honesty, there's no transparency, and there's no competence in the way they are managing the Nigerian economy.
So, Dr. Fabi, yes. I would ask you this. How much does the AAC believe that a level 1 civil servant in Nigeria should earn?
A level 1 civil servant
deserves to earn.
Deserves to earn. Sowore has made it a point to clearly tell Nigerians that we believe that the lowest paid civil servants in Nigeria should earn no less than 100,000 naira per month. A level 1 civil servant is earning right now about 18,000 naira.
Based on bearing in mind
yes,
that teacher salaries, state civil servants from their state governors who say they cannot pay more than 22,500. You can't change the governors if some of them are elected and you are president.
We are responsible for federal
staff.
So it's
are you going to create a dichotomy between the state staff and the federal staff? Is that what it's going to be, 100,000 and 22,500?
So I think here's the thing. One of the things, the federal government, and I think that is a point that Sowore has made over and over again, is that leadership must begin at the top. All the states typically take direction from what they see the federal government doing. So here's the reality. In the same way that salaries, that workers aren't paid at the state level, yet state officials and state governors have security funds and security budgets that they use, that the security votes, that they essentially slush funds that they misuse. Those same things are happening at the state level. So the fundamental thing is, look, we have 900,000 civil servants in this country. Of those 900,000 civil servants at the federal level, there is about 670,000 of them, almost 70%, that are between grade levels 1 to grade levels 11. It is the lower sections of grade level 11 that still earn about 99,000. So there is almost 600,000 people, a little over that fall into this category.
Yes.
Obviously, the ones at the lowest levels need a little more bump. But our calculations, our estimations, and that is again the difference between the party and the movement that Sowore has put together and everybody else. Because we're not just banding numbers. The first thing he did before he started running was sit a number of us down, called in experts from all over the place, and told us, this is my vision, this is what I want to do for Nigerians, and let's crunch the numbers. So here are the numbers we've crunched. In order to get civil servants to be paid at the federal level, no less than 100,000 naira each, it's going to cost this country $1.5 billion per year extra.
$1.5
billion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, our budget is about $35 billion. The size of the Nigerian economy is $500 billion.
Annual size, yeah.
The annual size of the GDP, the gross domestic product of the Nigerian economy is $500 billion. We are only talking. So when people hear 100,000, it's almost as if, oh, you're tripling the budget. We're not. It is 1.5. And in fact, just last week, while Nigerians are busy arguing about whether workers deserve to be paid 30,000 naira, South Africa across the board, not just federal workers, every single worker is going to, in South Africa, is going to be getting 126,000 naira per month across the board. So here, the point that we're making is that, look, the federal government must become, we must signal, they must demonstrate that these things are possible. And one of the things that is also in the AAC manifesto is that any state that is run by the AAC, because at least we control those states, those states will implement the same policy. It is the job of the federal government to then make sure, that's essentially what our party would do, is to make sure that whatever it is that is needed at the state level to provide them with the knowledge base, the technical support, the financial capacity needed to implement that would then be done. But it is absolutely possible to do it. We're talking $1.5 billion.
And I have to also add that whenever there is improvement in the revenue generated at the federal level, it percolates to the states.
Absolutely.
So if our tax base moves from 7% to 15%, and we now have 8 trillion naira, it's going to be shared also to the states. But the reason why governors can't pay workers is not because they don't have money. It's because of greed. Because even under the Buhari regime, they have given them about 3 bailouts. In fact, the federal government is saying it has become a crime that workers are not being paid because they have provided enough money. But when you have governors who are more interested in buying vehicles for the campaign of the president, and the president is not shying away from it, is not condemning it, what do you think? Where do you think they'll get money to pay workers?
Let's pause the thought. We'll go on another short break. When we come back, we'll round up that point. Then we'll also ask ourselves, according to the NBS, again, like you said, what they tell us, according to the NBS, in its 2007 report for December, 18.8% of Nigeria's youths who can be employed do not have jobs. We would want to know where Mr. Sowore will get the jobs.
Hi, my name is Kiki.
Sean Canterbury.
Deyemi Okolawon.
Je m'appelle Ufoma McDermott.
Ronke Odusoya.
Sean Wajaia.
And you're watching
Bounce.
to see a lot more.
Click here to subscribe, okay?